This is the Ramana Maharshi Satsang. We're reading from, and I'm commenting on, Ashtavakra Gita. Listen, reflect, and deeply meditate. Know yourself. Welcome. I'm Richard Clarke. I'm not a guru or a teacher. Ramana Maharshi's teaching of non-duality is deep and profound, and I just want to share it. I'm reading from and commenting on the Ashtavakra Gita. It focuses on deep contemplation and meditation to bring what is read and reflected into your direct experience. Today is chapter 20, verses 9 through 12. Janaka is continuing to speak of his experience, liberation while in life. Where is distraction, concentration, knowledge, or delusion? Where is joy or sorrow? I am stillness. Where is the relative? Where is the transcendent? Where is happiness or misery? I am empty of thought. Where is illusion? Where is existence? Where is attachment or non-attachment? Where is person? Where is God? I am awareness. Where is activity or inactivity? Where is liberation or bondage? I am timeless, indivisible. I am self alone. So let's go through these verses. 20.9. Where is distraction, concentration, knowledge, or delusion? Where is joy or sorrow? I am stillness. Janaka points you beyond the play of opposites, distraction and concentration, knowledge and delusion, joy and sorrow are movements of the mind. They rise and fall, but you are not bound by them. The verse reminds you that your true nature is stillness, unshaken by fluctuations. When you stop identifying with the changing mental states, you discover that stillness is always present. This stillness is not a condition to achieve, it is what you already are. Recognizing this allows peace to shine through, even while thoughts and emotions appear. This verse tells you that the self is untouched by the pairs of opposites that the mind creates. You may spend years chasing concentration and avoiding distraction, grasping at knowledge and rejecting delusion, seeking joy and fearing sorrow. All of this activity keeps attention tied to the mind. This verse is a call to release that struggle. You are invited to see that stillness is not something you produce, but your very nature. In stillness, the opposites lose their grip. You can let them come and go like passing weather while you rest in the ground of peace that is always present. 20.10 Where is the relative? Where is the transcendent? Where is happiness or misery? I am empty of thought. Janaka tells you that opposites, like relative and transcendent, happiness and misery, lose their meaning when seen from the truth of yourself. These pairs exist only in thought. When thought is quiet, divisions vanish. To be empty of thought does not mean a blank state that is forced. It points to the recognition that the self is prior to thinking. It points to self-knowledge. In this emptiness, nothing needs to be compared or balanced. You are the unchanging background in which ideas of relative or transcendent, happy or miserable, appear and disappear. They all come and go and do not touch you. This verse cuts deeper by pointing to the root, thought itself. Relative and transcendent, happiness and misery are divisions created by thinking. You may imagine yourself advancing spiritually when you feel close to the transcendent and falling back when you're stuck in the relative. Yet, both are only ideas. To be empty of thought does not mean silencing the mind by force. It means realizing that yourself is prior to all thought and untouched by any of it. This is freedom. No need to measure or compare yourself. No need to cling to happy moments or dread unhappy ones. You are already whole. 20.11 Where is illusion? Where is existence? Where is attachment or non-attachment? Where is person? Where is God? I am awareness. Janaka cuts through all categories: illusion and existence, bondage and freedom, person and God. These are all concepts that arise in the mind, just ideas. The verse reminds you that your true nature is awareness itself, which is beyond all concepts. Awareness does not belong to an individual person, nor does it depend on belief. In awareness, even the ideas of attachments and detachments appear like passing clouds. Awareness is ever present, not born, not dying, never bound. Recognizing yourself as awareness allows you to see the futility of clinging to any mental picture of self or God. Here you are led to the heart of self-recognition and self-knowledge. Illusion in existence, attachment and non-attachment, even the individual person and the highest God. These are all ideas that depend on the mind's activity. Awareness is prior to them, untouched and vast. Awareness is present before, during, and after any thought. You are that awareness. Awareness is always. How can you be something that comes and goes? Resting as awareness, you see that no category or label can define you. Even the highest concept, God, is seen to arise and pass in awareness. This frees you from grasping after spiritual ideas or rejecting human limitations. You are not the person striving. You are not the seeker reaching for God. You are the awareness in which both appears. This recognition ends the struggle. 20.12. Where is activity or inactivity? Where is liberation or bondage? I am timeless, indivisible. I am self alone. Janaka dissolves the duality of doing and not doing, bondage and liberation. These are categories the mind clings to, but they do not touch your real nature. You are timeless, which means you are not bound by birth, change, or death. You are indivisible, not broken into parts or states. This indivisible self is beyond striving, beyond attaining. This verse declares that what you are does not need to be liberated because the self has never been bound. It is a direct statement of your true freedom, always here, beyond time and condition. This verse brings the teaching to its purest statement. The dualities of activity and inactivity, bondage and liberation do not touch the self. You may spend years thinking, I must be active in practice, or I must rest in quiet and inactivity. Both belong to the mind. The self is free. You may believe you are bound in striving for liberation, yet the self has never been bound. It is timeless, beyond birth and death, indivisible, never broken into states. The significance is this: you do not need to wait for freedom in the future. You are self now, whole, indivisible, untouched. You are the self. You have always been the self. You will always be the self. Seeing this dissolves the search itself. These verses show you that all opposites, distractions and concentration, happiness and misery, bondage and liberation, belong to thought alone. You are not bound by them, for your true nature is stillness, emptiness of thought, pure awareness, timeless and indivisible self. And now a discourse by Nome, being free from thought.
The self is being. And being is free from thought. Therefore, the instruction from the Maharshi to remain free from thought signifies abidance as unalloyed being. Abidance as being, as the unconceived self, is true knowledge. True knowledge is free from thought. It is that state in which there is no division by thought, in which thought does not exist. It can never be thought of, just as being can never be conceived. In thought, there is a possibility of limitation or bondage. Free from thought, there is no such thing. In thought, there is I and this. The assumption of individuality being the primal thought to which all other thoughts are appended, or for which all other thoughts are. Being has no I and this, no individual, and nothing objective to it. All possible doubts about one's own real nature are merely thoughts of such, not reality, while true knowledge is doubtless. In thought alone is there the conception of being in one state or another. Real being is stateless, having neither a waking, dreaming, deep sleep, living, dead, or any other state. The very idea that thought exists is itself an idea, a thought. In true being, nothing of the kind has ever occurred. No more than divisions can be made in vast open space. To inquire and know yourself is to no longer imagine yourself within the context of thought. It is not to indulge in thought. It is not to suppress thought. It has nothing to do with thought. For true knowledge deals with the reality of being. And thought is something completely illusory. What do you supposedly know about the world? Isn't it just a compilation of thought? What do you know about anything else, anything other? Isn't it just the idea of it? When that idea is not present, you say you don't know it. When you have the idea, you say you know it. But in either case, it is just a state of thought. True knowledge is beyond such so-called knowledge and ignorance. True knowledge is of real being, which is never an I, an individual, and never a this, something objective. Therefore, to remain free from thought signifies remaining in that wisdom which is non-objective, and in which there is no misidentification whatsoever. If you can first perceive that you cannot be thought, but you are the silent witness of thought, of the nature of consciousness, this is very wise. If you further pursue an inquiry into the nature of that self or consciousness, and remove from its definition everything conceived, every kind of thought, including the thought of the wit nest, what remains is pure consciousness, which is identical with being. If you retain the idea, sometimes I am the witness, sometimes I am not, that's just thought. Know yourself in a manner beyond thought. If there is the conception, sometimes I'm abiding in the self, and sometimes I am not, that's just thought. The self has no such modification. Know yourself as you are, not with a bunch of thoughts. Already you know yourself as existing without the need to think of it. Relinquish the needless, the attempt to define yourself or reality with an idea. What remains, which is what truly is, of the nature of unlimited being, consciousness, bliss, is yourself, is real existence. This existence can never be conceived, is always self-luminous or self-known.
So now we'll take a few minutes and inquire. You exist. Notice that you exist and you know that you exist. And inquire, what happens when I stop identifying with distraction and concentration and rest in stillness itself. How can I experience the natural freedom of being empty of thought without trying to control thought? How does the sense of attachment or non-attachment appear within awareness? And what is it that witnesses both? How can I directly know the timeless and indivisible nature of the self right now? Who am I? What am I? All right. And we'll close with a chant. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Peace,
Peace.
peace,
Peace.
peace.
Amen. Thank you so much, very much.
Well, you're certainly welcome. Now, what did you guys get from today's talk or Nome or your meditation?
You reminded us that we are that, and it's so crazily simple to say that, but today it struck home more than ever before. There's still creepy thought that you're Robert Dalglish, you're sort of coming at this trying to get to that, and you're already that. And I've said it 1,000 times, at least in my own writings, but you seem to bring it home heavier today than ever before. So thank you. Yeah.
In 2012 of Ashtavakra, where is activity or inactivity reminds me of the Gita, where it says that action in inaction and inaction in action is wisdom. Can you expand on that? I know that self-attention is not an action. But when we turn out, this is all action. But what is action in inaction and inaction in action?
I think that is standing, uh, kind of as both or neither. Both are known, but neither is you.
Well, it's like, when Ramana would go to the kitchen and it would appear that he was doing the action of cutting vegetables,
That's right.
but there's really no Ramana. So that's like action in inaction.
Yes.
There's a lady that I used to go along to this bunch of nuns, these old retired nuns in Bellevue, and occasionally they were Zen, a Christian, but they had followed the Zen meditation technique and were all very amazing ladies, very socially active, activists and so forth, very amazing ladies. And she would occasionally say something like that. And part of me would say, what in the hell is she talking about? What the hell? Part of me just wanted to say, stop this bullshit. Why are you talking, double talk? And I think what she was saying was when you have come to awakening, all duality is meaningless. And what you were saying there was an expression of duality dissolving. And that's what happens when we recognize who we already are. And there is no more duality anymore. All that bullshit that we think is bullshit is not bullshit. It's just a statement of reality. Yeah.
Yeah, action and inaction are both for the
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not of the world of the enlightened being. They're meaningless.
Was when Ramana was cutting vegetables, there was really no action.
Well, the universe was just flowing.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff about, doership and action are places where I think it gets confusing because it sure seems like, when I hit my hand with a hammer going after those ants, it sure seems like there's action.
But that's you.
Well, if you are identified as Richard Clarke, there's action. But if there's no Richard Clarke and you hit him,
Right,
nothing happening.
right.
And when you recognize that you're not Richard Clarke, you're recognizing who you already are.
And, when Ramana asked about his surgery for his biopsy, they said, didn't it hurt? And he said there was pain, but I don't remember the rest of the quote, but it meant like, but not for me. It wasn't me who was hurting.
Yeah. And that's such a strange statement to make to ears that aren't accustomed to hearing what Ramana is saying and have no sense of that oneness of being the awareness that is behind everything. When they hear statements like that, they just go, what are you talking about?
Right.
What he said was that there was pain, but that the pain was not other than he.
Yeah.
Mm, mm.
He was not the pain, though.
But it wasn't other than him.
But it wasn't not the pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think when you it's very difficult because if you're in the jiva state, you're always seeing duality. So you can't really evaluate what's happening
Well
with
said.
the Anaguru. You just can't, because your vision is immersed in duality, even if it is of the Satguru.
Right. Even if when you're in duality, if you're thinking about non-duality, you're still thinking,
Yeah.
even though they may be glorious thoughts.
And that's why language really doesn't do it.
Yeah, well, language is a problem, but
Yeah.
it's what we got.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I also think that I mean, as long as you are seeing a world, then you have to keep working.
Right. Yes. Yes.
It's really just as simple as that. It's like, why could Jesus walk on water? You
Yeah.
see what I mean?
Yeah, I
It's
do.
Hmm.
because there was no water to be walking on. You know, it's like we see the miracle of him walking on water, but it's
Yep, I get it.
yeah. I mean, it's like
And you're trying to explain action from the point of view of non-duality, and from that viewpoint, it just doesn't make any sense.
The word that Christians use and we all use is the word miracle, but that in some sense discounts what really the amazing thing that's happening. It's just a convenient holder of meaning, but
Hmm.
and almost to sort of dismisses it as soon as you say it. Well, it's a miracle. Okay, fine.
I
But
remember, I think they
yeah,
mentioned to Ramana about the miracles that Jesus performed, and Ramana said, "Did he know that?" And so many times accounts of the miracles that happened through the divinity of Ramana,
yeah,
and Ramana never said anything about it.
Right. Though
yeah.
there were stories about it shared within his family, but he didn't like those stories to be promulgated on the outside. It gives people the wrong ideas.
Yeah.
there was a family that they lived in Iran, and it was a time of famine, and they had a bin where they kept flour, and whenever anyone would come to their house, they ask for uh, flour. They would give them scoops of flour from the bin. The bin never emptied. I mean, it's like this kind of, like that's Jesus's, the fish and the loaves, the Sermon on the Mount.
Yes, yes.
Um, this ego's grasping of what is, presumed reality, that arrogance of that is what needs to be, stepped on by Shiva.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is the
Oh,
dwarf. That is the dwarf
That he's
of
standing on,
of
yes.
of not that Nataraja is stepping on.
yeah.
But
Okay.
while Shiva is stepping on the dwarf is looking up and smiling at him.
Yeah. I said the other day, the foot that's up in the air is putting our best foot forward.
Mm.
So by putting in the meditation, reflecting on these teachings, crushing the ego when it rears its nasty little head, and then this is walking the path. I mean, this is what we have to do.
Yeah.
And until the end of the delusion, that's what that we
But
just have to
until we
keep
find
going.
that what we were looking for has always been there.
It is always there. It's not, it is always there.
Right. So that's one of the things that's funny about the whole thing,
Yeah.
of course. Anyway, it's good to see you all and to bask in our collective wisdom.
Yeah.
Or lack
Namaste.
thereof.
Yes.
Namo Ramanaya.
Thanks,
Namo
guys.
Ramanaya.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you, brother.